5 years ago, the girl began to remember her past life. She wondered for a long time what kind of world this was and whether it was from some novel that she had read earlier. She also thought, what if she is the main character, and if that is so, then shouldn't everything change? She even allowed herself to hope a little. But the reality hasn't changed. She's just an orphan, an ordinary girl who has nothing special like most people around her. For most of her life, Lydia had to only dream that something would change. And as usually happens, the changes began when she resigned herself and stopped dreaming. She was very lucky. The girl met a kind headmistress who became like a mother to her and grew up with noisy but kind younger brothers and sisters. 5 years have passed since she remembered everything. The girl does not live the worst life, but she still sometimes dreams of the best. She is forced to work at a regular job. She has almost no free time, but there is nothing to complain about after all. She is not hungry and has a place to sleep. Lydia works as a trainer at a dragon training center and has recently even come to love her profession. Although she used to come with a sad face and count the minutes until the end of the working day, she can no longer imagine her life without these beautiful animals. But of course, she would like to admire them. Not at work, but under some other conditions. This is the dragon Lu. He is one of the most beautiful here. She simply adores him and admires him every time, as if for the first time. In her past life, she adored magical creatures in fantasy worlds. Only thanks to her love for dragons, she somehow managed to love her new life. It is a world where dragons are a part of everyday life, sometimes raised as livestock, sometimes used as a fighting force or kept as beloved pets. In this world, dragons play a variety of roles, and the girl works as a trainer. What can I say? She's lucky with her job. Of course, this does not mean that dragons are obedient creatures. They are not domestic animals, at least almost all of them can breathe fire. Some even fly in the sky or swim in the ocean depths. With such strength and ability, a dragon can destroy a building as if it were made of paper. It's not hard to imagine what they could do to a person they didn't like. If one wants dragons and humans to live peacefully, training is not just a whim but a necessity. In addition to training, the girl is also obliged to keep order where they sleep and eat. But she loves this business, so there are no problems with this. She has never even hinted that she should be paid extra for the extra work. Most of the time, they get along very well. Sometimes the dragon is in a bad mood, and he shows it on purpose by ignoring her. In such cases, it is very difficult for her to find an approach to him. She never allows herself to shout in his direction, so as not to spoil the relationship in any way. After all, these creatures feel people's emotions very well, and remember for a long time, if someone treats them badly or just gets angry in their presence, this also repels them. Over the years, the girl has learned how to get out of such situations. She said that she had some goodies and offered to have a snack. After that, the dragon definitely couldn't resist. When he turned to her, she said that if he would wait quietly to the side while she led us in order, then so be it. She would share something tasty with him. He started to approach and look at Lydia with such eyes as if he could no longer hold on and would definitely not wait until she left. He knows exactly how to make her heart melt and make her just want to do everything he asks for him. You can see how well it works. She is simply powerless against such manipulation, although initially it was she who wanted to do this, and he still defeated her. The girl gave him one small candy, specifically so as not to spoil his appetite before the main meal, because he already had problems with that, and after sweets he would want to eat even less. He is some kind of unusual dragon. Usually he eats everything in huge quantities, and Lu, when and how, depending on what mood he is in. He can go for several days without eating anything, and then eat a week's worth of food in half a day. But everyone is already used to it. Today is the day when everything is normal, and he immediately started eating everything that was given to him. It happened that the girl brought him all the best and most delicious things, what he loves, and the dragon refused to touch anything simply because she offended him. He felt uncomfortable being in the same room with her, let alone accepting any food from her. Since then, the girl is always very careful. She tries not to quarrel even then. Then she no longer has the patience to remain silent. Everything was calm. When suddenly someone bursts in without warning, the girl understands that it is something urgent and is already scared. She asks what happened, and her colleague is so out of breath that he can't calm down and say what he wanted. He is in tears. It is as if he is running away from someone and could only ask for help. But, according to him, nothing is clear anyway. After some time, he was able to tell that trainer, Thompson, his stone-type dragon, got out of control. Stone-type dragons, covered in hard stone-like scales, and with furry plants growing on their backs. Like soft pillows, they are huge, but usually slow and calm, or so they say. Even when the weakest and smallest dragon gets angry, it causes the strongest panic. And here is one of the strongest. It is scary to even look at him at this moment, let alone try to come up with something. The trainer of this dragon feels absolutely powerless, no matter how he tries to make friends with him. Nothing works. The dragon seems to have forgotten him and perceives him as a stranger. Everyone asks him to do something, but he has no idea how to tame this enraged machine, compared to which they are all ants. Just when the two of them wanted to disappear into thin air, Lu and her trainer show up. Lydia is very happy to see everyone, like never before, but no one understood who called her and how she rushed so quickly, as if she had some kind of surveillance camera here. They started talking among themselves, who told her everything, and one of them even said that since the person in charge couldn't cope, it was right that they called someone for help. Unlike everyone else, the girl looks at this dragon as if nothing is happening. She is probably trying to show that he will not be able to scare anyone. And in this way, she stands out from the crowd, and the dragon looks only at her. Meanwhile, the man who failed to do his job dared to call her names and even grabbed her by the clothes, as if he was the boss here. Although she actually came to save his life and other people's too. She tries to restrain herself, asks how sure he is that they can cope without her, and then he goes quiet. So she realized that he was strong and brave, only in words. Lydia decided that until he crawled to her on his knees and begged for help, she would do nothing because it was no good anymore. He must learn to accept that there is someone stronger and more experienced than him. And until that happens, he cannot expect any personal help from her. She's even interested to see how he'll deal with this dragon, who doesn't care who is who. He's ready to crush and break everything and everyone in his path. So far, no one understands what happened to him. The dragon is not hungry. He is not kept locked up. His conditions are not bad, which means the situation is unusual. Since Lydia has adapted and trained only her dragon, she is not as strong with the others, but she is still more experienced and knows more than all of them. If she sees something that she can latch onto, she might tell someone about it, or she might not. At some point, she thought that the longer the dragon was angry, the worse it would be for all of them. So it was better to calm him down first and then solve problems with colleagues. She calmly walked up to the dragon, called him a good girl, and held out her hand with a candy that her dragon loves very much. She says she doesn't mean any harm. She just wants to treat him to something tasty and have a quiet conversation. Fortunately, these dragons understand several languages. Otherwise, everything would be more complicated. The dragon calmed down very quickly. He allowed himself to be accepted. Lydia felt that she was now safe with her and began to look at what she didn't like so much. It turns out that someone put something on the dragon that was already uncomfortable for him. Moreover, this item caused unbearable pain. Any living creature would go crazy from this, especially a dragon, who is already prone to this. And the dragon also has a stone stuck in his leg, which is not visible at first glance, but it is so sharp and is embedded so far that it is impossible to remove it on your own. The guys just watch from the sidelines how she copes there and don't even offer help. Suddenly, the girl pulled the stone too sharply. The dragon felt a strong forehead for a moment and pushed it away with the same foot where the stone was without noticing it. She doesn't hold a grudge against him, only now she'll have to take a little break. And those two only approached her now, when she was at a safe distance from the dragon. Meanwhile, just in case, Lydia held a preventive conversation. She said that this kind of stones very often get into the skin of dragons. They do not notice it, but over time the stones begin to irritate the skin and sensitive wounds appear. As a result, the dragon himself does not understand what the reason is and gets angry at everyone around him as if for no reason. Such stones need to be checked every day, because if you don't do this for several days, the stone will grow, and it will be simply impossible to remove it, only by surgery. They could have thanked for this information, but they considered the help as an opportunity to humiliate them, in principle, as usual. If the dragons didn't suffer from this, she would never have shared this with them, but she just feels sorry for the animals, so she had to teach those who consider themselves the smartest. Meanwhile, the guy turns to the male trainer and asks how it happened that, calling himself a professional, the man does not know the basic rules of caring for the animal for which he is responsible. While the dragon is resting and enjoying his well-being, another problem has appeared. The man creates a conflict out of nowhere. He asks what the guy means by this, and seems to be unwilling to acknowledge the fact that Lydia might be better than him in some way. At that moment, the girl decided to support the guy. After all, he is right, and a person who constantly harms animals and does not have to look after them should admit his guilt and remain under control. And she also said that if she finds out that some dragon often suffers, she will personally demand that the management fire him. He can't answer this because he understands that she's absolutely right and there is nothing to argue with. Half an hour later, the chief of Ashar called her. The girl was very surprised that he called her and not someone else. And yet she listened to him, and as it turned out, he wanted to ask what she was thinking, bringing everything to such a state. She tells him that besides the fact that she stopped the maddened stone dragon, she doesn't understand what she did wrong. To which he says that the situation was critical and shouts as if he confused her with someone else, or that the situation was reported to him incorrectly. That could also happen. Lydia explains that if the designated trainer is present and able to act, the intervention of another trainer is, in her opinion, a completely normal reaction, especially since it is unknown what would have happened to the dragon and the people if she had not intervened. And here the main phrase was heard, which explains a lot. Asher hints that Thompson has Harrison's game behind him. He is one of the largest sponsors of the center, and then asked her if she had forgotten about it by accident, and advised her that if she didn't want to lose her job, she needed to be careful about what she said and did. Then, he also asked to think about an orphanage, because they tolerated her behavior only because she was good at her job. The man thinks she doesn't need to be reminded whose recommendation she'll need if she ever wants to leave here. This is what happens when someone has connections that help even in situations where the person is wrong, or when others suffer because of him. Lydia always knew that in every business there is injustice, especially towards employees, especially towards conscientious ones. Even despite the memories of a past life in a fantasy world, there was little difference between then and now. Fantasy or not, reality remains reality. She only knew one thing: train dragons. And she was lucky to get a job at the State Center, one of the most prestigious in the Empire that could be found. But from the first day, as soon as she appeared here and people found out about her, naturally, colleagues were divided into two camps. A minority became friends with her, and the majority became enemies who only say that she walks with her nose in the air just because she is a little better than them in training. Even in this center, the largest training center under the control of the Empire, there are such problems. Some are sure that the girl chooses obedient dragons for herself because it is easier, and then presents it as a merit. Every day she dealt with condemnation. There were literally a couple of people around her who admired her and learned from her, and the rest only found the opportunity and reason to gossip. And in the meantime, the day came when the owner of the Dragon Lu came to look at her, and of course, to talk with Litia. Every time he comes, he never stops praising her. This dragon used to be naughty, but now he is like a kitten. The man is sure that he will never find anyone better than her. As he is pleased to see the results of her work, she is also pleased to hear such compliments, which motivate her to become better and do more. After some time, Lithia got down to business. She says that if there is a possibility, she would advise to spend a couple more days here and work on restoring the connection with Lu. The owner was separated from her because of training, so the dragon perceives the man as a stranger for now. The man agreed to listen to her advice. He only regretted that he could not devote himself entirely to it. And he is not at all afraid to listen to her advice, because he knows that if she says something, it means it is only for the good of the dragon. Then they talked a little more. The girl thought it was time to say goodbye, but important conversations were not over yet. He wants to offer her something. The man offers her to become their family's personal trainer. She immediately thanked him for his trust and offer, but replied that, unfortunately, she had to refuse. After all, she still had a lot to learn, and she wanted to work longer in this center. In that case, he says that if she changes her mind, she can contact him at any time. She will always be a welcome guest in their homes. She didn't have time to thank him for these words when suddenly something happened to the dragon. He began to look at the sky. But not just like that. It was as if something interested him or angered him because the expression on his face was far from cute. The two of them looked in the same direction and noticed that the air had become so hot that everything around them began to float, as if it were a living picture. Lithia tried to calm Lu down, but in the meantime, she began to think what it could be like. She didn't remember right away, but when the man asked what it was, the girl remembered that she had once heard rumors. If it emits heat so intense that it ripples the air, and if it is the same kind of dragon that has always chosen only one noble family, then it is an extremely rare breed. This could mean that it was none other than Duke Albrand who had arrived, who periodically likes to appear so spectacularly and unexpectedly. Meanwhile, a whole workplace was allocated for him, because perhaps he could become a client of the center. The guy looked at the documents and now says he heard that this is the best training center in the Empire, so he decided to check it out. Man, what to tell that everything is true, that they are very proud of their outstanding results, and that nothing is impossible for them. In that case, the guy says that since they are so confident in themselves, he would like to entrust them with training one dragons. The man asks if he understands correctly that the gentleman means training the dragons that his family's knighthood will ride. To which he replied that it was not quite so. He was talking about his dragon, which everyone knows very well and has probably seen at least once, or at least heard of. The man acted as if he didn't fully understand the situation, so he asked again if the guy really meant the dragon Agrix. To which he replied that everything was correct. Only more precisely, he was looking for a person worthy of becoming his personal trainers. The man tries to explain that this could harm his dragon, since it cannot be ruled out that he will develop an aversion to human trainers. The man had a lot of questions. For example, what happened to their family's personal trainer? Where did he disappear to? But he was afraid to pry into something that wasn't his business and didn't ask anything. The Duke says that if the director is so worried about it, he believes his fears are unfounded. The man asks what the guy wants to say. He at least guesses, but wants to hear it straight out, as it is. The Duke explained that if there was anything unclear in his words, he meant that the decision would not be made by the director, but by someone else. After some time, when Litia continued to communicate with the owner of Lu, a colleague approached her and handed that the director is calling her. This is an order, and it is better not to make him wait, because the matter is unusual and serious. At least that is what he understood. The girl has no idea why there is such a fuss, because she has already discussed everything with him, and they have agreed on everything. Did someone really say something about her again? And if so, then this time she is not going to keep quiet. She approached the man to say that unfortunately, the training would have to be rescheduled for another time, and he became interested in what was going on. She told him that it seemed the director had called all the coaches into his office, and the man suggested that perhaps it was because of the Duke who had recently come to visit. It seems to him that if the coach says so, then there is no other way, and he is definitely not wrong. And so that the farewell would not be so sad, Litia promised that the next time he came, she would write down for him the recipe for those delicacies that the dragon loved. He happily agreed to this and wished her a good day. The girl smiled at him, but inside, she was worried. The director also wanted this from her. She asked her colleague where she needed to go, and he told her that everyone was gathering at the first training field. The lady hurried as best she could. She didn't know that it was better not to go far, because there would be some kind of meeting soon. It so happened that the director noticed her and asked in front of everyone why she let you be late. She had to explain that Count Ulbert, the owner of her war dragon, came to visit them. So she spent some time with him and specially moved away so as not to distract the other trainers and dragons. After that, she looked to the side and saw a very familiar man nearby who rarely appears here. Apparently, the Count was right. It's because of him that they were all invited here, but it's not clear yet what it all means and how it will all end. Something about him already makes her wary, but the girl tries not to show it so as not to attract unnecessary attention, of which there is already enough. And then the director finally says that the reason he gathered everyone here is to choose a trainer for the Duke's dragon. Among the crowd, there was immediately talk that this was the very dragon that the family's personal trainer should be working on, since he is incredibly dangerous and only a few out of thousands can find an approach to him. After this, the director warned that this was not mandatory participation, and only those who are confident that they can cope with his lordship's dragon should participate. Agrixes only choose those who belong to the genus Albrandt. In other words, almost nothing is known about them, and the less information, the higher the risk. No one knows what can anger the dragon, which means the trainer can easily run into his wrath, and no human body can withstand it. Based on this situation, the question arises why the Duke wants to entrust his dragon to someone else's trainer and not his own. There were many more people who wanted to than one could imagine. It's very simple. This is a chance that comes once in a lifetime. It's a great opportunity, but the duchy is so far from the capital. If someone is chosen, then that person will have to leave. While she was calmly thinking about the consequences, this colleague dared to approach her. And here too, he did not miss the opportunity to make fun of her. He doesn't understand why she doesn't extend her hand, because no sane person would hesitate before such a chance. Some girl came up, she calmed the guy down. She is one of the few who treats lithium normally from the very beginning. And in case someone is suddenly scared, the guy warned that if something happens, he will definitely interfere. And the essence of the task is to go out to the dragon in order, determined by lot. There are a lot of people who want it. At this moment, the girl stands aside, because she thinks that this is probably not what she needs. Especially since it concerns someone who looks like the main character of the novel. She really should not get involved in such a thing. You just have to get confused in such a story, and that's it. A series of troubles will begin, but she didn't apply, so it won't affect her. People started approaching the dragon one by one. He doesn't let anyone near him, throws fire, and those who are watching this from the sidelines, most of them have already changed their minds about participating. One girl almost got hurt. Her hair almost burned, looking at her. Others now have very little desire to repeat. Others are already flying away from the dragon, and those who were nearby are running away so as not to end up in his place. Everything is happening even worse than Lydia thought. She probably didn't regret that she refused to participate. Although if she had been there, this probably wouldn't have happened to her. The girl had never met such a huge and strong dragon. In front of him, even she feels weak and doubts her strength. And now it's the turn of that self-confident trainer, who even now decided to humiliate the girls and asked to watch how a man can handle this matter. He approached the dragon very easily, even too close. Most likely under any other circumstances, he would not have done this. Now he just needs to put on a show so that everyone can see how brave he is. Lithia has no idea what to expect from this. She's already standing ready to save him. The dragon is lying on the floor, looking straight at this trainer, and he is taking advantage of the opportunity to show that others can learn a lot from him. He turned around with a sarcastic smile and said that everything was very simple, and that after this half of the coaches could simply be fired. Only because of his inattention, it will be worse for him. Lithia sees that the dragon is starting to rise and is already nervous. She knows his character very well, so it was not a surprise for her, but the man was perplexed. He thought that by doing nothing he could tame the dragon. But that's not true, and now he will disgrace himself as quickly as he wanted to get rid of half of his colleagues. It all looks very much like justice. He who exalts himself ends up being disgraced. He has already started begging for someone to come over, and his colleagues are looking at him and laughing that someone has once again overestimated their abilities. He screams a voice for someone to do something, because with every second the dragon's paw squeezes his body tighter and tighter. Lydia, although she is not obliged to do anything because he mocks and underestimates her more than anyone else. But she, unlike some, has a conscience, so she was the first to rush to help him. She had already managed to switch the dragon's attention to herself, because otherwise he would have simply continued to press. The girl spoke to him, asked him to look at her, and warned him that she would not come closer without his permission. Watching him, she realized how smart he was. Although he looked bored and irritated, he warned gently, without unnecessary aggressions. First, she decided to deal with this bearded man, and then she will declare that either the management fires this troublemaker, or she resigns of her own free will. For now, she's waiting for the dragon to calm down at least a little, because the first rule of dealing with a dragon is that there's no point in interacting with it while it's emotional. Everyone is looking at her now, so there is no way she can embarrass herself like her colleague just did. At this point, Lydia thought that it was time to move a little further, but unfortunately, she was a little hasty. The dragon thought that she moved away to gain speed and attack him, which means that she had to move away a little later. She was in a great hurry because the animal perceives her every movement as an attack. She realized that this was an unusual dragon because she found contact with others much easier. But with this one, she needed to get used to it. The dragon's owner was about to come up and calm him down. But literally a moment later, the animal seemed to have been replaced. He started smiling, rubbing against her, even drooling, which means he's comfortable with her now. The girl, just in case, tries not to move because now he is too close. And if something happens, she won't even have time to react. No one expected this. They became friends very quickly. I wonder what his owner thinks about this because he has probably never seen anything like this before. The dragon never behaves like that even with him. The guy felt jealous, but then he thought that if so, then it's even for the best, because it turns out that he found the person he needs. While the dragon did not let the girl go, the guy approached them to say his opinion, not even realizing that she was not actually a participant, and in principle did not care what he would say. First, he asked her name, she introduced herself, and then he said he had a few words. He thought it was impressive, to which she said she didn't quite agree because she hadn't done anything special. She was just following protocol, to which he says that at least she was the only one who actually followed protocol. The guy didn't talk to her for long. He immediately asked, "How about taking over the training of the Kazen?" You can tell from him that he is sure that no one will refuse such an offer. Lithia never in her life even thought about ending up as the Duke's personal trainer. It is a very great honor for many, so they have already moved to a more comfortable environment. And then she tells him that she would not like to say this, but she cannot accept this offer. The Duke asked if she was not satisfied with the terms, and if so, they could discuss it and find a compromise. Lithia replied that if it were a matter of conditions, she would have applied for it herself when the opportunity to work with his dragon arose. She didn't even sign up for the dragon exam to begin with, and if her colleague hadn't made a mistake, she wouldn't have gotten involved at all. Even though the director will be angry, she cannot leave the orphanage that is so dear to her. For her, it is not just the place where she grew up. To ease the burden of the principal, even if only a little, to allow the younger children to live without fear, that is the path she chose. She cannot leave this job under any circumstances, even if she is offered the most favorable conditions. So the girl simply apologized for wasting his time and then went about her business because they had nothing else to talk about. The guy wondered if he could find another trainer who wouldn't be pushed away by his dragon and become friends with him like he did with Lithia. At that moment, the director came up to him. He was shaking all over. The man was weighing, and he also clearly wanted to have a serious talk. He came to make it clear that even though His Majesty's dragon recognized the trainer, Lithia, her skills were a completely different matter. He also says that as the guy himself saw, she never worked with the dragons of the nobles of the Ashur Empire. She mainly trains dragons left behind by foreigners with limited funds. So it's hard to say if she's really any good. In his opinion, entrusting her with the state is absurd, but at the same time, she's the kind of person they don't want to lose. He just admitted that if it weren't for the funding from Count Harrison, they would have valued the girl much more. And now that they have a reason to get rid of Thompson because of this incident, even more so, Bet wants to ask, no matter how qualified the trainer is, what's the point if the dragon rejects it? The director couldn't answer this because he himself understood perfectly well that the guy was absolutely right and he agreed with him. After that, he also asked if he was so concerned about her competence. Then maybe he himself would try to deal with his dragon. Without explaining anything, the guy decided to end the conversation because he had nothing more to say or ask. In the end, he only warned that he was going to leave his dragon here, in this center, for a while. And so that the director wouldn't worry, he said that there was someone here who could handle him, so everything would be fine. After some time, the director invited Lithia into this office, she guesses, but pretends as if his words will be a surprise for her. She thought that nothing could surprise her, but when he said that the Duke left his dragon here, Lithia just froze in one place as if someone had pressed pause. It's clear that this is not the most pleasant news for her. It's not that she doesn't like the dragon, she just has many others besides him. She has such a grueling schedule that she simply can't imagine making time for anyone else. She asked the director to find someone else for the new dragon, and he asked if she seriously thinks that someone else can handle it without anyone getting hurt. The man reminded that there is no official request for training, so there is no need to do it, only feeding and basic care. But this still does not sound reassuring. She can't hold back anymore. She speaks as if she thinks she doesn't understand anything. Thompson created this whole mess, and she has to clean it up. Why all of a sudden, The man explains that it was the Duke's decision, and he can't change it. Lithia didn't hear any of this. She is overwhelmed with thoughts that her colleague ruined everything from the very beginning, and is now sitting in the infirmary. It would be better if she let the dragon do something with him. There would be less trouble. Lithia can't take it anymore. She starts to take out a resignation letter, and the man starts shouting that he will never accept her resignations. He is already lying on the floor in tears, trying to stop her by any means, and asking what about her dragons, which she looks after. And this is already direct manipulation. It is clear that he is doing this on purpose because he is not confident in his other coaches, but he has not said this in direct words yet. Lithia understands that the director is absolutely right. If she suddenly quits, it is unknown what will happen to the dragons who have already gotten used to her. This is not only about Dragon Sue, she also gets along very well with others, with whom she managed to become friends when she was replacing her colleagues. Unlike most of those who work here, she has a conscience, so she listened and is in no hurry to quit. His eyes immediately lit up, and the man also said that he knew she would say that and had no doubt in her kindness. Meanwhile, evening came. Lethea found out where the new dragon was settled, came to the place, and there was a sign near the cage. Special care, assigned trainer Lethea, entry strictly prohibited to outsiders. She calmly walked in here with a whole cart of fruits, vegetables, and meat. And as soon as the dragon saw this, he immediately looked out of the darkness. If this animal even knew how to sew it up, then at least he would greet her with a smile and hugs. And she also, due to fatigue, did not really notice the dragon's mood. While having her back to him, asks how anxious he was because of the sudden change of scenery, and also warned that she would take care of him until his lordship returned. She was nice to him, but he attacked her as if he had confused her with someone else. Lydia was tired, but she was still able to react. She stopped him, and he obeyed at the same moment, as if she were his mistress or he was afraid to upset her. The calm lasted for a few seconds, and then he growled again. She was not yet used to such mood swings. It's impossible to imagine what she's feeling right now because, after a hard day at work, this is all she needed. The girl thought that he was probably scared of her. So she deliberately remained calm and showed that she was the coach here, and he should listen to her. Lydia asked him to stop in a very stern voice, but she was afraid and thought that it was too much. The dragon calmly lay down on the floor, but judging by his previous reaction, this doesn't mean anything yet. There is no guarantee that in a couple of seconds he won't start growling at her again, and he also seems so charming to her that she loses her vigilance around him, although she never had this happen with other dragons. Then she asked him to eat, and only now realized that most likely it was not her he attacked like that. He just wanted to have dinner quickly. The girl felt that this dragon had been treated very gently before, which is why he was so surprised when she ordered him to calm down. Even though she only has to look after him, she can't wait to start training. But she wasn't asked to do anything like that. She had already looked at him with her professional gaze and saw that he lacked control. He was used to being allowed to do anything, but things wouldn't work out that way. The older he got, the harder it would be to train him on. She has to deliberately not be too soft with him so that he can see her emotions and understand what makes her happy and what doesn't. Anyway, she needs to make friends with him somehow, so she offered him a walk because all dragons like that. Lethea had just put a special device on him when he growled at her again. This time she wouldn't forgive him. I had to put a little pressure on the leash so that he understood that he couldn't do that to her, and next time he would hardly allow himself to do that. The girl asked to remember that exactly how he treats her. That is how she will treat him. Before that, she was sure that there were only two of them here, but at some point she accidentally turned her head and saw a person who shouldn't be here. Not only she was surprised by this, but the dragon too. He had already resigned himself to the fact that the owner was far away. And then this happened. Naturally, he immediately ran up to him, started sniffing, snuggling, and the guy first apologized so that he would be forced to leave him there. From the outside, it looks so cute that you can look at it for a very long time. After all, it's not every day that you can see the most serious person smiling, and the most evil and powerful dragon too. Lydia couldn't even imagine that these two were capable of such facial expressions. Not much time had passed, and they were so bored. Meanwhile, the guy asks how the meeting with the dragon went, and she doesn't even know what to answer. Because I just came here, not much time has passed, especially since she only does basic care and can't tell you anything interesting. She would of course like to tell him the truth, that for her this was extra and unwanted work, but she held back. You never know, maybe he'll thank her for it later. And in order not to spoil anything, it's better to pretend that everything is fine and it doesn't bother her too much. Meanwhile, he says there aren't many women working with medium to large-sized dragons. It is surprising to him, but at the same time it is not important, because the main thing is that the state accepted her. Although it seemed that in order to find such a person, you still need to try, but they were lucky on the very first day. Maybe the Duke thinks that she won't refuse him anything and that it's so easy to talk to her, but no. The girl really isn't going to become the appointed trainer no matter how much he looks at her, and then he comes closer to her. She has already thought up all sorts of things and is waiting for him to say something, because his behavior and look are somehow ambiguous. The guy takes her hand and asks her to just remember that she can always change her mind, and that's exactly what she wanted to hear from him. While he was saying this, she was of course worried, but now she understands that overall the situation is not bad. At least she has a choice, and he himself just told her this. She said she understood everything, and he left saying that he hoped she would continue to take care of the dragon until he returned to the duchy. The girl replied that since he was under her responsibility for now, she would do everything possible, and he could be sure of that. The guy smiled and said that it would be great, and after that he said, "Let's see how long you will resist," but that already sounded somehow strange. Lydia didn't understand what that meant, and did she really say something wrong because it sounds like an obsessed lover? Meanwhile, the girl sent letters to all the other training centers when she had time, and now she's waiting for at least one to finally answer her. To put it bluntly, she has problems in all areas, and there is no ray of hope in sight yet. Lydia sent letters to other educational centers, but everyone had already gone home, and when she asked her colleagues to help with feeding, they just ran away, so she was left alone with all this work. Meanwhile, the next day came. The owner of the Dragon Sue came to the center, and as usual, he admires her work, because each time the dragon looks and behaves better and better. After this, she asked the Count if she remembers correctly that today is his last day, to which he replied that it is true. After all, it is time to return to his homeland. And he also said that, to be honest, he was very sorry to leave her here, after all. Now it was unknown when they would see each other next time. Suddenly, he started talking about how he recently heard that she got her dragon trainer license at a record-breakingly young age, and with top marks. And despite that, she can't find a job in the Empire, which upsets him a little. Among the owners who want serious training for their dragons, most of them are the nobility and elite, for whom dragons play a decisive role in the struggle for inheritance. Therefore, trainers who are able to raise dragons the way their masters want them naturally move closer to power and wealth. But due to the director's interference, she is constantly given external tasks, and she has no relation to that world. But she is just glad that she can be near dragons, especially since she enjoys watching how after efforts they only become better and more obedient. The girl also said that in the end, there are few places where you can see and work with so many different dragons as in the training center. Although she didn't ask him about it, the Count decided to express his opinion. It seems to him that she has no ambitions at all, and that's the only reason she still hasn't moved from her place. He wants to advise her not to doubt herself because if you look around, it is difficult to find even a similar professional to her, or one who has even a third of her knowledge and experience. And after that, he said a very interesting and unusual phrase that is worth thinking about. Fish do not survive in too clean water because that is how they relax. And then, when they end up in dirty water, they simply cannot survive since they are only adapted to ideal conditions. The moment they said goodbye and the game flew away on its dragon, Lithia thought that she loved dragons so much that she was happy just to see them. So she gritted her teeth and got the license. And then she came to the training center and was able to see all the dragons she wanted. Only now, she only needs to answer one question. Can she want something more? Because if she thinks about it too long, time will pass and it will be too late to act, even if she finally decides to do it. She also wondered out loud if maybe if she sold or sacrificed something, she might be able to hire a priest. At that moment, she did not notice that the Duke approached her, overheard her words, and very strongly, as if on purpose, scared her, saying, "How are you?" Lithia, only out of respect for him, restrained herself and turned around with a smile. She thought that the surprise ended there, but it was not so. The girl sees a woman behind the Duke, whom she didn't expect to see even more than him. What a surprise. But someone could have warned about this. The woman saw that the girl was a little nervous, so she asked if she was okay, as if she thought she was about to tell her the truth. Meanwhile, the guy says that he has no special requests, so he will go visit the Kazen and they can talk for now. He doesn't even realize what an awkward situation he just put Lithia in because she has no idea how to communicate with this lady and is also afraid of ruining her first impression. Suddenly, the woman herself started by saying that she would like to talk to her and asked to set aside at least a minute for her. They moved to a more suitable place for conversation. They were brought a cup of tea, treats, and Lydia was already worried that she might have to refuse something. Usually she has at least some idea of what they want from her, but now she doesn't even know what will happen next. The woman was calmly drinking her tea, so the girl couldn't resist and immediately asked if she had any health problems or problems with the children in the shelter. And suddenly she asks a question. The dragon of Duke Albrecht. What is he like? And this is what the girl least expected to hear from her. It's not clear why she asks this, but first she said that it is very dark red. Even when completely motionless, it seems as if a reddish glow emanates from it. If you touch the scales, you can feel small grooves. Lithium thinks. The light plays along the curves of the scales, and perhaps magic somehow influences this. And she also compared him to a large red-hot coal. After all, it was not for nothing that he was called a living volcano. Then the girl said that if a woman saw him, she would also fall in love, because it is one of the most beautiful dragons she has ever seen, and it is also very smart and different from the others. All this time, the lady listened to her with a smile, and the girl noticed this and did not understand where this was all going. It clearly meant something. Some more time passed. Lithia finally decided and asked directly how she could be useful to her, because they had clearly gathered here just to discuss the dragon. To which Victoria replied that she wanted the girl to become the trainer of Duke Albrecht's dragon. Lydia asked what she meant, with a face as if she was already afraid of disappointing her with her answer. Victoria had heard many times that a certain outstanding trainer had been able to calm his lordship's dragon. Soon after, the Duke himself came to the shelter. He made a large donation and even brought a priest with him. Fortunately, the priest volunteered to help the children in need of treatment, after which the lady asked, did Victoria agree to this? To which she replied that of course he examined her too. That's how she was able to get here. Lydia is very happy for her because she heard that she has very serious problems, and it is difficult for her to even stand up on her feet to drink a glass of water. And since the woman came to her, despite her health, this means that refusing her would be the same as committing a sin. The girl will never forgive herself if she even hints that she doesn't have time for this. Meanwhile, Victoria asks her not to worry about them and not to miss the chance that the Duke gave her. In short, the woman is not asking for help for herself. She just found out that the Duke wants to get consent from the girl, so she came to ask for it instead of him. It so happened that the woman had changed in appearance recently, so the girl did not recognize her at first. But this is the very person for whom Lydia wanted to quit her job and move to the shelter to help her with the children. They are very close to her, so the girl now has a very difficult choice. She has been trying for a long time to find a reason to move to an orphanage in order to act according to her conscience. And now the woman is asking to make a choice in favor of the Duke. She has a very kind heart. What Lydia feels now is simply impossible to convey in words. She will never stop admiring her. This is a person who does everything for others and will never ask for help for herself. Meanwhile, the Duke is lying quietly resting next to his dragon. He most likely knows what the woman wanted to talk to the girl about, so he is waiting for good news. He didn't notice anything, but the dragon opened his eye, saw the trainer, and hinted to the owner that they were no longer alone. The guy asks how they talked, about what, as if he doesn't know why that woman came. And then she tells him that she basically thought about the proposal he made to her, to which he said that he doesn't remembers, so that he makes her some kind of proposal, and she reacts as if she doesn't understand whether it's a joke or whether he really has lost his memory. I wonder how long her patience will last, because after such words it is unlikely that anyone will want to negotiate anything. She thought that it was very important to him, but he behaved in a way that was simply unacceptable, especially considering the fact that he actually needed it more than she did, so that he wouldn't relax. Lydia said that if that was the case, then he didn't really need her, and if he needed a trainer, then he wouldn't have to turn to her anymore. It was rude, but to the point, and he deserved it. As soon as she wanted to leave and had already said goodbye, he asked how she can't understand jokes. The guy apparently doesn't understand that she has other things to do right now, and in the meantime, he says that if she changed her mind, it only makes him happy. He suggests discussing the details again, apparently realizing that she is not going to stand on ceremony with him, and jokes with her are bad. Lydia smiled and said that if he was serious with her, she would be happy to discuss everything that was needed, and would not even mind making a compromise. After signing the contract with the Duke, time flew by very quickly, and the day of departure to the Duchy of Albrant came. As soon as they see a woman, she constantly asks her first of all to think only about herself, and nothing else. Lydia promised to write her letters as often as possible, although she doubts that she will have much free time. Everyone found out that the girl was already leaving. Some came to say goodbye to her and say a few last words. Some are really sad to say goodbye to her. They wouldn't want her to leave, but I understand that it's her choice. Time goes by and things like that happen. She thanked everyone who came to see her off, despite being busy, and also taking into account the fact that today is a very difficult day for everyone. And then one girl says they have news that can be considered a parting gift. The Duke has officially filed a complaint, and Thompson is finally fired. This is good news, not only for her, but also for everyone else who he did not allow to work here in peace. The fact that he was given 6 weeks of sick leave was already good news, and now this, he will never appear here again, unless it is by his own free will, to see his colleagues. But there are very few here who would be glad to see him, so it is very unlikely that this will happen. Of the two of them, only the Lithians would be glad here. She will have a lot of different memories from here. Even though everything was not entirely smooth, it is still difficult to say goodbye to these people. Finally, she approached the Duke and said that she was now ready to leave, and instead of supporting her, he complained that she was late and he had to wait for her. She explains that she was just reaching out and usually such moments don't pass quickly, and she was also trying to hurry, so she did everything she could. Oh, he also responded to this by saying that she was not leaving forever. After all, she would have vacations and other free days, and she didn't even begin to explain that he didn't understand a lot of things, and if he didn't have people who missed him somewhere, that didn't mean that she shouldn't have the same thing. Meanwhile, Lythia is already reading the contract, where it is written that the main goal is to help Kazan fit in well with the squad of dragons of the duchy, to which she says that there were no problems between the dragon and his lordship. On the contrary, everything was perfect. Then she moved on to the second point, which states that if the trainer feels that additional training is necessary, a bonus will be provided. The guy says that everything is as it is written. The trainer himself knows the dragon's condition best, so if she notices something that he missed, he will make sure that she is paid properly. And the girl at this moment is thinking about why he speaks as if he is sure that she will definitely notice something. I had to ask if such a situation suddenly arose, whether it would be possible to discuss the details of compensation later. He answered, "Of course you can." So at the end of the conversation, the girl was absolutely calm that in the future, no unpleasant misunderstandings should arise. Then she decided that it was enough to think about it. In any case, the contract had already been signed, and it was time to prove herself. After some time, she and her team found themselves in a very beautiful place that cannot be described in words. The landscapes here are such that you want to stop and look at it for as long as possible. And as for the sounds here, that is a separate pleasure. This is the most perfect place to raise a dragon that you can find. Meanwhile, someone tells her that everyone understands that she is delighted. But for now, it is better to calm down a little and watch the road. She explained that she had lived in the city her whole life, so she couldn't take her eyes off it. It was a trainer's dream. And then she hears a strange phrase. Someone says that, although, of course, not everything here is so rosy. However, she probably doesn't care. The state has already recognized her. Only the girl didn't understand anything from this. Then this man said that she would understand when she saw it, and at that moment, She felt very wary. Lydia doesn't understand why they feel so cold, because she just calmly rides along with them, simply admiring the views. The only thing she knows about this place is that it was recently in complete chaos. She clearly doesn't know much, so it will be very difficult to fit in. But she will try. After all, it will be very difficult here without friends, or at least those who don't hate her. Here they have already arrived in that very Duchy of Albrunt, although it seemed that the road would be much longer. Duke, that's a status right after the Emperor. With such a huge territory, there should be plenty of dragons here, and no less trainers. She's already wondering what interesting dragons she will meet, because there are obviously quite a few of them here. And then one of the companies says that it seems she expected something different, but suggests accepting what is available. The girl really imagined it to be more colorful, but in reality she didn't see a single dragon, which is very strange. Lydia doesn't even know whether it's worth asking questions about this or whether it's better to find out everything later as we go along. In the end, she was left here alone. Everyone suddenly ran away. She even felt offended for a moment. No one thought that she was here for the first time, and it would have been possible to at least help her get settled and give her a short tour. She tried to stop them, but she failed, and only the evil dragon remained with her, who was already hungry. But she doesn't even know the basics of how to get food here. It looks like some kind of setup or a joke for newbies. She thought that if it were that easy with dragons, trainers wouldn't be needed. It's difficult, but not scary. And it also seems that running away is definitely not an option. Lydia decided to go inside with him first since no one is helping her with this. She has to do everything herself. Her first day has already gone badly. She pulls the dragon, and he resists, as if he was offended, but this is all she needed after everything that happened. Although she knows that the dragon has gone too far, it doesn't seem like he's being mean on purpose. All that's left is to figure out what's going on. She miraculously managed to find an approach to him. The dragon probably felt that it was better not to anger her now, although she would not have splashed out her anger on him anyway. She very slowly leads the dragon inside and promises that if he sits here quietly, she will return soon. Just now, she was absolutely calm. But now she has a serious conversation with all those who literally ignored her appearance. And she also wants to discuss why dragons live in conditions where even trainers have a hard time looking after them. In order to find food for him, she would have to go around the entire territory, and that shouldn't be the case. In special situations, if the dragon gets sick, you will have to spend a lot of time and effort to help him, so you will definitely have to come up with something about this. Meanwhile, the Duke had already returned. This time, almost no one noticed. He walked freely into the room and said nothing to anyone. Personal Secretary Baskel noticed that the door was open, went in to check who might be there, saw the gentleman, and apologized for coming in without permission. And after that, since they had already seen each other, he decided to tell them that recently many trainers have been quitting, and even just eliminating the gaps that arose after he transferred the title turned out to be extremely difficult. And the main problem among them is the trainers themselves. So it was necessary to get rid of Julius Albrandt and his wife. Julius Albrandt, the man who, right after the boy lost his former Duke and Duchess at a young age, burst into the house as if he had been waiting for this, and tried to take everything from them, it was Uncle. For noble houses, dragons were a symbol and embodiment of power. So families that had the opportunity to hire a personal trainer treated them almost as close associates. And in families with rare types of dragons like the Kazan, the status of the trainers was even higher because only the personal trainer had all the accumulated knowledge and experience. But now these irreplaceable people are gone. The guy is sure that his uncle suspected that the trainers betrayed him. But who would have thought that he would actually destroy them all when they began to turn away from him? The secretary asked if the gentleman had already found a trainer, because now it was important to find just anyone, because the situation was urgent. The Duke replies that he found someone interesting, but for some reason he didn't share any specifics. Baskel is eager to find out what this man is like, where he is from, and how good he is at his job. The guy just said that next to this new trainer, Kazan behaves very calmly, even better than sometimes with him. The assistant at first did not believe that this was possible. And the Duke repeated that no matter how it sounded, the dragon really did behave with her like a cute pet, literally crawling at her feet. He saw it with his own eyes. Baskel will never believe it until he sees it in person. After all, Kazan is the type of dragon that, if the trainer does not meet his unknown standards, will not seem like it to him for years, or even decades. He is so picky. Just at the moment when he was told that he would soon see everything for himself, the door to the office opens and that same man enters, which they were just talking about. Lydia bursts in as if it were her space, which means something interesting is about to happen. She probably has something to say, although in fact, the first time she could have come in more politely so as not to spoil the impression. She is now literally radiating a crazy, indescribable energy that is impossible not to notice, even if you have your back to her. Maybe she just feels that way. That's why she acts freely, as if she knows for sure that nothing will happen to her for this, and she is completely right. The Duke asks what happened. And isn't it her duty to take care of the dragon and train him at this moment? To which she replied that this is exactly why she is here now. Because without this conversation, there is no point in continuing to work. To begin with, she had this question for him. Did the dragon always live alone? And what the guy answered was that if the dragon acted of his own free will, then yes, he had been alone since childhood. She reacted as if she was not satisfied with this answer, and when he asked what happened to her, the girl suggested clarifying the goals of the training. As far as she understands, the main task is to prevent the aggression of the Kazan towards other dragons and teach him to accept food from strangers. He says that she understands everything correctly, and that's true, but he doesn't quite understand where she's leading with all this. In that case, Lithium is forced to insist on immediately transferring him to another place, and as soon as possible. The Duke says that he was initially isolated because he was uncomfortable around other dragons, especially since they also avoided him. Lithia responded to this by saying that this is why he needs to be moved. She understands that it is not easy, but if they continue to isolate him, it will become a problem. He has not had the opportunity to communicate with others. That is why he became the way he is now. He just does not know how to get along with other dragons and perceives them as his enemies. In principle, the guy himself had thought about this before. But now he realized that if he was going to deal with the dragon, he had to approach this matter with all seriousness. He is very happy that she approached her work so responsibly, but for now he says nothing about it and just listens to her. Only after he asked her if she was sure of her position, and she replied that she was absolutely sure. He told her the following. Now she, as a trainer, must take full responsibility for everything that happens during this training. Only then will he trust her with his dragon. Lithia completely agreed. She just warned that some preparation would be needed first, and the Duke didn't quite understand what she meant. This is basic obedience training. Moving his enclosure will take time, and she plans to use him for that training. The guy asked if he understood correctly that she would cope in a week, and she reacted as if it was not quite so. He says that she herself said that she would conduct obedience training while the new enclosure was being prepared. Judging by these words, she realized that he really knew how to twist what he said. And if you look at his face, it was as if he had never heard anything like this. Apparently, the previous trainers were too busy flattering to tell the truth, and in the meantime, she tells him that she will definitely achieve a result that will satisfy him. Meanwhile, Litya is already outside. She is going over this whole situation in her head and trying to put her thoughts in order while no one is distracting her. And she also looks at her other colleagues, who seem to be deliberately ignoring her. And yet, when they look at her from afar, they tremble, as if she were some kind of beast or a terrible dragon to them. She probably scared them when on the very first day she started angrily complaining about the order that they themselves do not support. Lydia thought that she wouldn't want to communicate with anyone anyway. You never know what kind of people they are, and since they behave like that, it means they're not very... Today is the day to check the results of the basic training she promised the Duke some time ago. It seems stupid to do this publicly, but she promised. So she should show the employer what he wants to see. Now the only question is whether the dragon will obey her commands in the presence of other dragons. But she is not entirely sure about this. All the dragons are already on the same platform. Most of them are behaving very restlessly. What can we say about the Kazan? He will probably react to all this even worse. Surprisingly, he is silent all this time and hardly reacts to anyone. Although this is only the beginning and it is unknown what will happen next, there is no point in rejoicing ahead of time. The dragon is so unpredictable that now it can lie quietly, not reacting to anything, and in a couple of seconds pounce on someone. So far, he has been following her commands perfectly, as if she had promised him complete freedom and unlimited food in return. The girl is pleased that everything is working out exactly as she promised. The dragon responds perfectly to basic commands. She notices that the dragon's master is nearby, so she decided to see what he thinks about it. The girl expected to see joy, and he stands in one place and reacts as if nothing special is happening. Although, if it weren't for her efforts, his dragon would be raging like never before. She tells him that that's all for now, and she asks why for now, as if he thought something more interesting would happen. She had to explain to him that nothing is truly perfect, especially a complex dragon, which he himself knows well. And in general, a dragon is not a tool. It is a living creature. So it is impossible to predict when and how it can suddenly break loose. After some time, he came up to her again and asked if she had a minute because he had some errand for her. He wants to entrust her with overseeing the training of the trainer's apprentices at the duchy. But this is already unexpected. There was some kind of pause in her head. She tried to rethink and understand what had just happened. She has the first question for him, why did he turn to her? Because there are other trainers. The guy forgot that he hadn't explained something. The thing is that they are all students. And besides, the personal trainers of the Albrandt house left for various reasons, and the places became vacant. And then she realized that it looked like it meant that all this time the dragons had been worked with, controlled and trained by students, not certified trainers. Lydia couldn't keep her emotions to herself. She asked very loudly why he was telling her about this only now. She still has a few questions about what he would do if something went wrong. After all, both dragons and people could die in the process, and if Kazan got mad and didn't listen to her, none of the other trainers would help her. The girl doesn't understand how one can be so irresponsible. He could at least not hide such details from her, because this only made it worse. To this, he could only say, it's good that the trainer was able to control him. Otherwise, the consequences would have been catastrophic. And she would have had to take full responsibility for what happened. She never ceases to be surprised and outraged by this employer's approach. It's as if he doesn't think for others. Not at all. She also asks him if he really wants to say that he doesn't even have a single personal trainer, especially in a house like the Albrandts. a family that the dragon Agrix recognized. It's something unimaginable. The girl simply couldn't hold back and went off to vent her anger because everything she learned today is like saying that we are an ancient noble family, but we have no pedigree. Someone was apparently tormented by his conscience. He did not leave her alone and came to talk about this topic and also said that she was not mistaken. The girl asks him what brought him here, and he says that he came to praise her for training the dragon in obedience. Only apparently it didn't look like it would be needed. And then he asked if she remembered the terms of the contract, because if necessary, he could remind her. If a trainer personally decides that additional training is necessary, he is entitled to a bonus. Accordingly, he has a question. Does she, as a trainer, read that a team of students contributes to the training of the states? After this, another question was asked whether it was then possible to consider the training of students as part of the preparation for the training of the state. The girl doesn't have time to tell him anything, and he still says that she has nothing to worry about. She will receive her bonus fairly and rightfully. Based on his behavior lately, she concluded that he was most likely angry with her or even jealous, that Kazan obeyed her much more easily than his master. He didn't answer this question in any way, but from this everything is still clear. After all, everything is absolutely obvious. Meanwhile, she tells him that the contract does stipulate this. Now she understands that teaching students is also part of her duties. But besides that, in a house like Albrandt, there must have been secret techniques passed on to personal trainers. She is sure that they must be written down somewhere, and most likely he knows something about it. And if he shares this information with her, it will be wonderful. This is exactly what she is hinting to him about. He has a question about how well she knows this house, and it also sounds like it's not his only question. He thinks that since she is a dragon trainer, she must have heard the rumors that are circulating among the nobility. Lithia says that she mainly trained dragons for the former kingdom, so she is not very knowledgeable about the affairs of the nobles. Right after that, the guy started by saying that before the dragon Agris came to him, the ducal house had been doing without him for 100 years. And those who inherited the house during this time were not, strictly speaking, true. Then he asked if she had any idea what happened next. When there is no legitimate heir, naturally, everyone starts fighting for this place. One of the uncles was especially greedy. He believed that if he didn't get it, then no one else would. One can only guess what he did with his personal trainers, and that is the answer to her question. Lithia replied that in that case, it would take time while she worked with the dragon to understand Agrix better. She would also collaborate with the trainee dragon masters of this house because they were most likely more experienced than her, so that should help. She will put the plan to move the enclosure on hold, instead planning to increase his interaction time with the other dragons and coordinate with the students because that is much more important now. In principle, the Duke is happy with everything. He allowed her to act according to the plan. After all, if it is more convenient for her, then why not? He also said that he was actually a little surprised because it wasn't mentioned during the contract discussions. So he expected that she would rather ask for its dissolution than perform her duties so carefully. She has something to say to that. If she did that, he would immediately cross her. A simple dragon trainer to know about the shame of the family. He would probably choose the most reliable way to make her keep quiet. Meanwhile, the next day came. All the trainers gathered in one place and Lithia and the secretary were standing in front of them. She can already feel the tension in the air. The atmosphere here is like they don't like her and they don't hide it. The secretary began by saying that, as the Duke had said yesterday, Lithia was their new personal trainer, who from now on will be responsible for their training, after which she introduced herself with a forced smile and asked for their support. As expected, she didn't get anything like that. These people aren't happy to see her. You can see that without even looking closely. The secretary also said that he is sure that they have many questions and complaints, but he wants to ask them to remember something. The trainer Lydia was personally chosen by the Duke, so if he finds out that someone doesn't like her or, even worse, is trying to put a spoke in her wheel, it won't end well. The secretary doesn't even imagine how tense this relationship between all of them will be, since it doesn't concern him, but the girl already feels that nothing good will come out of this. People who see her in this room for the first time are surprised, and those who already know her are wary and hostile. She tried to accept the fact that it was natural, and then said that according to the Duke's instructions, she would indeed teach them from now on, whether they liked it or not. She also added that she herself knows nothing about this place. Who knows the most about the dragons of the duchy is not she, but all of them. For her part, she can share the knowledge she gained while getting her trainer's license and working at the training center. And in return, she would like them to tell her about the dragons of the duchy and about the dragons of Agrix. Someone immediately raised their hand. She was very happy and asked this person to say what he wanted. The guy wondered if she wasn't so competent that the Duke personally offered him the position. And what if some incompetent intern incurred the wrath of the dragon Agrix? Everyone started ordering in turn. Last time someone was almost fried because he brought the wrong food and someone was almost cut with a claw. In the end, the question arose. How can they be useful if they can't even handle them? The girl says that everyone here probably knows how dangerous dragons are, and then asks if that's why it's not worth sharing information. That same guy replied that it was because no one wants to die at the hands of their favorite dragon. Another girl said that they are just interns and they don't even have a basic license. Lithia wants to say that regardless of whether they have a license, they all love dragons, and that's the main things. She doesn't want to boss anyone around. She just wants to be a colleague who takes care of the duchy's dragons with them. As someone who truly loves dragons, she humbly asks for their help because that is the only way they can be of benefit. She also doesn't intend to judge anyone, in case someone isn't interested, but she'll be glad if at least someone responds to her offer. Exactly the same time as yesterday, Lydia met with the Duke. He wants to hint that she should start feeding the dragons alone, because the others are afraid to even approach this place. And since she is so smart and brave, then, in his opinion, it will not be difficult for her at all. Indeed, she could easily handle it. But there is one problem. Her schedule is so busy that he does not have time to have lunch. But if she says that she can't handle it, he uses this as an excuse to find fault with anything. And this should not be allowed under any circumstances, because this is her authority. She made it seem like it was an easy task, and that of course she would have no problem adding this duty to her schedule. In the end, she was left here alone with this huge product. She doesn't even want to imagine how many times she will have to run back and forth, not to mention how to approach the dragons, and most of them have never seen her. Her thoughts at that moment: I am a person with experience who has gone through everything in the training center. Dump a bunch of work on me. Do you think I have never seen this before? No way. Guys, you messed with the wrong person. You will regret entrusting me with feeding. The girl approaches each dragon in turn. She does this with a smile and tries not to think about how many more important things she has to do today, because if she rushes, they will feel it. Suddenly, she notices very unusual scales on the dragon's skin, and then remembers that they only look like that because that he probably doesn't finish eating. And he's also completely exhausted, so it's no wonder that he's looking at this basket so greedily. Just think that dragons in such an estate might not get enough to eat. But since she is now responsible for it, from this day on, such a problem will no longer exist. Now it makes sense why they are all much smaller here than the dragons she was used to at her previous job. Lithia is going to show what a real trainer's job is because this won't work. Meanwhile, one of the Duke's assistants passes by the interns and hears that they still can't calm down. They don't like that some girl came and started teaching them something. Everyone thinks that they are doing well, but that's not true. At the very least, they give the dragons much less food than they should, and then wonder why they are so irritated and hot-tempered. In principle, you can understand them, but these people should understand that everything is done for the good of the dragons. And if they are told that they need to study, then they need to study. Here, some people imagine themselves to be professionals, although they don't even measure up to ordinary amateurs. Most people started arguing that Lithia would soon run away from here herself, because it was impossible to tame so many dragons on her own. It will be interesting to see their reaction when they see that nothing is impossible for her, and that she alone can do in a short time what they all couldn't do together for so many years. Meanwhile, a whole week has passed, and one trainer has had the same problem for several days. The dragon refuses to listen to him and does not let anyone near him. And such changes are also noticed in other dragons, but not so clearly. The same guy who recently argued with the girl remembered that just recently they were calmer, and now something happened to them. No one has any idea why they suddenly got so mad, and at that moment Lydia comes in because she heard that it was very noisy inside. As soon as the girl walked further, the noise immediately died down, as if the dragons were frightened of her or calmed down at the sight of her. Everyone started looking at her as if they were simultaneously happy about the calm, but at the same time outraged that she had decided everything again, and they were not able to do it. This guy looks at the dragon and can't understand. Has she already tamed him and now he won't listen to him? He was so angry that, if this is how it turns out, he will simply quit this job because it will be a real disgrace. He runs up to the teacher and says they need to discuss something, but she doesn't even turn around and hints that now is not the time. Unlike some, she is very busy. She now has 30 dragons to feed and train, and she also has one question for them. How did it happen that at first they dumped all the work on her? And now, when things started to get hot, they decided to show at least some minimal respect. When she wanted to talk to them for the first few days, they ignored her. And now they run and ask for a minute of attention. When they started making excuses, she didn't even listen to them. She just asked them to leave and deal with their problems on their own, especially those who had previously said that she would soon quit and wouldn't be able to handle such work. At the end, the girl only said that since they have so little conscience, then let them deal with all these problems themselves, bite them or trample them. It is no longer her problem. It's funny to her to watch how at first they wanted to push her out and laugh, but now, finding themselves in a dead end, they crawled back. If they wanted to expose her to feeding, they should have understood how it could end. They most likely referred to the head trainer and said that she should feed the dragons, but they don't know one thing. The student must give only half of the daily norm. The rest is given out during training or when completing other tasks. This is how dragons develop obedience to the student's orders. If a trainer gets involved in a fight without knowing anything, he must get burned at least once so as not to make a mistake again. Meanwhile, she is so tired that she can no longer feel her legs and arms and everything else. Lithia thought she had some time to rest. She came to Kazan because she was the least near him today. At first, he didn't notice her. He got angry that someone came to him, and then he saw Lydia, and his gaze immediately became kinder. The girl asked if he minded her lying there with him, and he made it clear that, of course, she was always welcome here. At that moment, she thought that just a couple of days ago this was a strange animal to her, and now she was resting on it so easily and calmly. And if you also take into account that he is the most formidable and powerful dragon, it turns out that she can be proud of herself. After some time the Duke came here, he had already approached him several times today, but this time he did not expect to see him here alone. At first the boy didn't notice that there was someone else there, and when he started talking to the dragon, he made it clear to the owner that he shouldn't make noise. He lifted his wing and showed that Lithia was sleeping next to him, and she shouldn't be disturbed. It looks very cute. Even the Duke had never rolled around with him like that. He doesn't even know how to react to it, and can't imagine how tired she must be to go to bed like that in the middle of the day. He had never noticed other trainers even complaining about being tired before, but she was sleeping half lying down, as if she had been working nonstop for months, day and night. Observing the situation, the Duke came to the conclusion that she was looking after all 30 dragons alone. And he was now discussing this with his secretary, who could not believe that she had managed to do such a thing. The gentleman wants to know why he hasn't been informed about this yet, and why he has to find out about it himself, and completely by accident. The secretary says that in his opinion, she believes that this is an internal conflict between the coaches and is trying to resolve it herself. If she was so overloaded, she could have used her powers to deal with the students, but for some reason, the girl didn't do it. The guy understands only one thing, that if the trainer responsible for the state falls down due to overwork, it will become a problem for him too. Meanwhile, someone ran up to the enclosure. The guy asked where she went and Lydia immediately woke up. She explained that she was a little tired and lay down to rest, then realized that she had slightly pushed the dragon, started apologizing to him, and that guy continued to panic, as if he found out that she was bitten here. This is not how she wanted to wake up. Well, since she can't fall asleep, she'll have to find out what's going on there and what all this panic is about. She approached her colleague, asked him to be quieter, and then asked if he had forgotten that this was the Agrix's enclosure, and that he couldn't shout like that here. He looks at her with frightened eyes, even forgot to apologize and started trying to explain how it all started. Lydia asked him to calm down and take a deep breath, and judging from his words, she already understood that they had big problems. In the end, he was able to tell that all the dragon mounts had run away from them somewhere, and no one knew where to look for them. It was like this. As soon as they opened the pen, they broke free and ran away before they could stop them. And this had never happened before. That's why everyone was so scared. Lydia asked him if she understood correctly that they were again asking her to resolve this chaos. A weak coach who would not be able to cope and would want to quit in a couple of days. To which the guy replied that, in principle, that was the case. If she were tired now, she might not even listen to him. But now she simply can't refuse. Even if they are mounts, they are still dragons. If they don't take control of the situation, things could end up much worse. In the end, she simply asked her not to distract her and promised to return all the dragons back before they ran away too far and got lost. Although, in fact, she has no idea how possible this is. A dragon mount, covered in scales rather than fur, with horns similar to a deer's and a flexible whip-like tail. This is a type of dragon that looks like a horse. The girl thought that now she needed to think like dragons and think about where they would rush to at the first opportunity. She asked the Kazan to rise a little higher to have a better view, and he obediently obeyed her. They saw all the dragons very well from above. Now we need to figure out how to get them back. Given their equine instincts, an open field was the most obvious place for them to go. She tried to find their leader. He is different from the others and runs at the very beginning so that everyone runs after him. Lithia asked the dragon to land right in front of them. Thus they stopped these horses, and the first thing she asked was if they were ashamed and what is it called. After that, she hinted that she understood them perfectly well, but it was time to go back, because this was no joke. Although they don't seem to be planning to do this at all. If the girl had come alone, she would have already panicked. But she is not alone here. She has a faithful assistant who looks very convincing. Meanwhile, her colleagues didn't even think about following her. Even though she asked them to stay here, they could have done at least something anyway. Although they are incredibly ashamed of this whole situation, they do not show it outwardly. Although, unlike what usually happens, they do not discuss lithium. One of them suggests taking a rest and then trying to catch them again. To which someone replied that even if they rode up on horses, they would get scared and run away even faster. Most people doubt that the dragons will follow them back, because once they run away, they won't just come back. The guy asks, and what then? Are they really suggesting to just sit and do nothing? And that means that he is most ashamed that they are all guys here sitting quietly in place, and the girl is correcting their mistakes. He asks, what will happen if his lordship demands compensation for the lost dragons, in which case they simply risk losing their jobs? Meanwhile, the coaches heard some sounds and then, for a moment, imagined that this was exactly what they could not even dream of. Lithia fulfilled her promise. She returned absolutely all the dragons. They run back even faster than they ran away. When they could already hear her, the girl asked to quickly open the gates of the training field. And in a couple of seconds, all the dragons were in their places, and she was already waiting for gratitude and an apology from them. When she realized that no one was going to say anything, she did it herself. She asked at the top of her voice how they could allow this to happen and what they would do if she wasn't here. Literally, everyone owes her their job. And she also wants to know who exactly allowed the dragons to escape. She wants to hear at least something, but everyone is so ashamed that they just hide their eyes, hoping that she will leave them alone. I wonder how it will end, because if not, she won't say anything. Next time she will just ignore them in the same way, even if the situation threatens someone's life. Finally, at least someone dared to approach her. That same guy even fell to his knees and said that they sincerely regretted that everything turned out this way. After which, she asked each of them if this meant that they had finally admitted that their methods were wrong. In response, they all nodded their heads, and this is exactly what she had been wanting from them all this time. In that case, the girl suggests finally stopping all these squabbles and finally starting to work together. The guy raised his head, looked into her eyes, and asked in a trembling voice if she was going to kick them all out or complain to the Duke. Lydia doubts that she has such powers, and even if she did, she would not have done this with them. Besides, she told them from the very beginning that she needed them, and since they apologized, she had no reason to hold a grudge against anyone. No one even thought to hear such a thing from her. People realized that she really is a very good person, and they thought badly of her in vain. Finally, the girl said that she never tried to belittle their dedication to the cause. She simply asked for mutual respect and nothing more. After that, they shook hands. It's hard to believe that this moment has finally happened. But before it seemed that it was still very far away and that it was something impossible. The guy thanked her again as a coach and apologized for everything bad he said about her. He is sincerely ashamed of this, and she looks at him and does not believe that this man is even capable of such words. In any case, it's very good that everything ended so well. And in the meantime, the Duke came up, and everyone started praying that he wouldn't find out anything about what had just happened here. It all depends on how the girl behaves, but given the way she just spoke, it will probably all remain a secret. The guy asks what's going on here. They didn't try to hide the fact that there was a small incident, but then they said that everything had already been resolved. And then the gentleman turns to the trainer of Lithia and asks her to explain whether she is seriously calling the mass escape of dragon mounts from the duchy's cavalry an insignificant incident. Everyone froze in anticipation of what she would say to him about this, and now she has a choice to cover up or leave her reputation clean. She thought of something to say, namely that the dragon mounts had returned safe and sound. Moreover, perhaps the leader from the Duke's stable had turned out to be especially capable, and several wild ones had even joined him, so she thinks it's right to just turn a blind eye to what happened. But for now, it doesn't seem like he agrees with her. The guy asks how she imagines him turning a blind eye to a mistake made by the trainers themselves. In the end, he somehow miraculously agreed. Everyone was already sweating and afraid of being fired. But the gentleman said that since everything had already been decided, he would forgive everyone for the first time. But if it happened again, he would not figure out who was guilty and who was not. Everyone would be fired, especially since if we fire everyone now, it will become a problem. And the girl also said that even if His Highness tries to feed the dragon himself and succeeds, he still won't be able to train them. And it won't be easy to replace all these students at once, after all. They are the ones who know the ducal dragons best. So even if something like this happens again, it's still better for him not to rush, and he himself should understand this. The Duke made a decision since Lycia's trainer handled the situation. He will not punish the trainers severely. But the students will have their salaries reduced for a year, and if during this time they cannot prove their suitability, he will still fire them, even if he does not have a replacement for each of them. He thought it would be fairer. After which they all thanked him for his kindness and promised not to disappoint him again. Even if the trainers are valuable personnel, the ducal house has the wealth and influence, and if they wanted, they could quickly find a replacement for a couple of students. Lithia already thought that everything was so twisted that she would never figure it out completely, but everything finally ended. Evening came. The guy came to visit his dragon as usual, but this time he didn't think that he was not alone here again. He saw Lithia sleeping next to him, and as if for the first time, he was convinced that she was not afraid to stay here. So it's clear from the outside that the dragon adores her. He even looks as if he's guarding her and is responsible for the silence. The Duke is clearly jealous of his dragon because before he only treated him so well, and now another person has appeared. The guy decided to pick her up to drag her somewhere because he thinks that she fell asleep there unintentionally and was most likely very tired. So she couldn't go anywhere. He explained to the dragon that he might be comfortable with her lying next to him, but she, as a human, needed a comfortable bed and pillow. And she might also get sick, and as a result, there will be a lot of problems for everyone, and no one needs that. So she urgently needs to be dragged into the room. Of course, the dragon was very upset. He was comfortable with her, and now he was left alone. When a person is pushed against the wall, their true nature comes out. Until now, they have not had a trainer whom they could both trust and respect for his skills. So understanding lithium became the key point. Being talented and being reliable are different things. The gentleman asked the assistant to tell the manager to prepare a rest room for the Lycia trainer, and also asked to invite the priest. The gentleman was already leaving, but stopped to remind her that she was the only trainer in the entire duchy, so she needed to be treated accordingly. He is now thinking about the fact that she not only returned the escaped dragons, but also brought the wild ones with her, and also demonstrated impeccable management of the treasury. All doubts about her license and lack of qualifications were dispelled, thanks to her responsible actions. In his eyes, she is now a rare and valuable find. It is incomprehensible to him how someone like her could remain in the shadows, so he will fix that very soon. The Duke is worried that she will wake up on the way because if this happens, the girl might misunderstand everything, and if she gets scared, she might even hit him in the face. The next day came. It was morning outside. Letia heard sounds from the window and began to wake up little by little. At first, she didn't notice anything, but then she remembered that she had fallen asleep in another place and wondered how she could have ended up here, or rather, who had helped her with this. The girl clearly remembers that she fell asleep next to the dragon, did not wake up for a second during the night, so there was no way she could have gotten here on her own. She had never seen such dazzlingly luxurious rooms before, and she even felt a little awkward here, because if someone saw her here, she wouldn't even be able to explain how she ended up here. After some time, the butler came to her. He seemed to sense that she had woken up, and he came for that. To bring her breakfast, everything would have been fine, but he also said that it was an order from his lordship. Judging from this, she understood that she probably ended up here on his initiative too. After all this, she asked where her clothes were that she had fallen asleep in, to which the man replied that the maid had come and helped her change her clothes so that it would be more comfortable to sleep. And while she was sleeping, a priest came to her, but she was not happy about it. And when the girl found out that she had been sleeping all day, she even got angry at herself. Lithia thinks first of all not about herself, but about the dragons. She worries that she did not have time to feed them, and they are probably very hungry and angry now. The lady began to get ready, make the bed, and at that moment the Duke came in and said that there was no need to worry about it, because he had already taken care of it for her, and then suggested that if she hadn't eaten yet, they could do it together. If of course she wants to be in his company, and if not, then he will not be offended and will leave her here alone. Now they have already moved to another room. The table has been set for them, and Lydia does not cease to be surprised that each time he becomes nicer and cares about her more and more, although he should not. She thought that awkwardness would ruin her appetite, but nothing like that. She even manages to have a normal breakfast, and the food is so delicious that it is impossible to tear yourself away from it. At some point, the guy decided to discuss yesterday when he saw her sleeping as a dragon. He's interested to know if she wasn't scared to stay there, and if she really trusts Kazan so much that she can lie on him with absolute calm, as if he were a small and safe kitten. She explained that his scales were simply so warm that she couldn't resist, especially since she had felt from the very first day that he would never harm her without reason. After that, he said that he didn't blame her, but he would be grateful if she didn't do it again in the future. He also said that her actions yesterday had impressed him and asked to be allowed to be frank. In fact, this whole story with the socialization of the state is nothing more than a pretext. Its real goal is to find a personal trainer for the ducal house. Without such a specialist, it becomes difficult to manage. After that, the question was asked if she, as a person with a license, believed that Agric's dragons should really live in groups, to which the girl replied that she understood that this topic was not to his liking, but socialization training was still necessary. Everything is very simple and logical. Kazan is not a wild dragon after all. He lives among people, and it doesn't matter how rare he is a species, or that he only recognizes representatives of ducal blood. If he starts hurting people, there will be only one solution. The guy asks what she means because so far it all sounds too ambiguous coming from her. Lithia said the word, euthanasia, and after that his face turned pale, after which the girl asked, does she understand correctly that he would not want this? And this is the answer to the question of why she should be listened to in this regard. After some time, she decided to change the subject, asked how long her vacation would last, and after that, he immediately got up from the table. Before leaving, the guy said that a week would be enough in the plan and she could rest during this time and do nothing. She can't imagine what will happen without her and the dragon. Although she probably forgot that she's only been here for a couple of days, and that before her, they somehow managed here. The guy even said that he took care of the dragon himself before the trainer showed up, so there's no need to worry about it, especially since she is his only dragon trainer, so she better put her health first. She somehow didn't think that he would say it directly, but still, it doesn't change the essence. She really needs to rest and not think that without her, nothing will work out for others. Lydia thought that his concern for the treasury was sincere, but their conversations always somehow deviated from the topic. Meanwhile, the maid came up to ask if she needed more food, to which the girl replied that she didn't need anything yet. Then she suddenly changed her mind and decided that since she had such an opportunity, why not spend this week with pleasure and enjoy everything possible? Meanwhile, some time has passed. The third day of the Lydia vacation has arrived. One can only say one thing. That time flies very imperceptibly, as if on purpose. The girl tried her best not to think about work, tried to clear her mind and truly relax her soul and body. She was calmly walking around the area and met the Duke, whom she hadn't seen for a long time. And he, as usual, was so serious that it was even scary to talk to him. She suggests that he shorten his vacation a little because it's hard to do nothing and he doesn't want to hear anything about it. He says that this is not even up for discussion. It is an order. And if he sees that she is busy with something, he will add a few more days to her vacation on purpose, because he thinks it's wrong to entrust work to someone who hasn't recovered yet, and he really hopes that she understands him about this. The girl thinks that he is clearly unwell. She has never seen a manager in her entire life who is so concerned about the health and well-being of his subordinates. In the end, she came to terms with his opinion. After all, it would really be strange to want to work more when the management offers rest. So another day passed and another, and now it's already the 5th day of her vacation. The girl is already beginning to feel that she is getting used to this way of life, and it will be hard for her to return to her previous rhythm. All she does is stroll around the grounds, relax in the shade, and drink lemonade, as if she had a resort here. Naturally, there were cases like this one. A colleague came up with a request to look at one dragon, which they again couldn't handle. And the girl is so relaxed that she didn't immediately get the gist of it. And if she could, she would have simply ignored it. Then she finally heard what was going on, but she still couldn't force herself to think about it seriously. The colleague was so persistent that it became impossible not to notice her. Lydia even stood up and asked her to repeat everything she had just told her. So she learned that the dragons they were feeding were fine, because the trainers followed her feeding schemes, but the night cries of the Agrix dragon were disturbing the others. Some of the more sensitive dragons got scared and got injured, but this really scared Lydia. A colleague told me that the dragons have very small cuts that are easily treated, but they can't look normally at animals that they can't fully help. Thus, the girl realized that the words about everything being under control were a lie, because it turns out that there was chaos all around and she didn't know about it. The Duke did a very good job of keeping the information from reaching her, but his plan wasn't fully thought out. Now, Lydia definitely isn't going to sit still. They headed to the cages very quickly because every second counts, and Lydia doesn't want anyone to suffer anymore. She could hear these screams even from afar, which made her want to cry herself. Although the stables for the dragons are far from the estate, because of their size, even careful movements create noise. Usually the distance muffles their cries, but not this time, which means they are really in a bad way, so bad that it is impossible to describe in words. The girl flies to the dragon in a panic. She had already imagined everything possible and was even afraid to look at him. Only instead of him, she first saw the Duke, who was sitting to the side and holding his head, as if something had happened. It was clear that he did not expect to see her, and he had a lot of questions. The dragon growled at her at first because he didn't recognize her right away, but then he quickly calmed down and became very nice. Words cannot describe how nice it was on her part. The girl realized that all the efforts were not in vain, since he reacts to her as if she were his friend. The guy reminded her that they had actually already talked about this, and that she should be lying down with lemonade in her hands, to which she replied that when dragons behave strangely, what trainer can rest peacefully as if nothing had happened? Lydia doesn't understand just one thing. Why are they both pretending as if nothing is happening? She knows that it is not so. The dragons resemble their masters. Truer words have never been spoken. They both look at her as if she had imagined something herself. After that, she asked the Kazan if he was behaving like that because she took a day off and he wanted her to come back as soon as possible. He growled slightly, which meant that she understood everything correctly. Meanwhile, she is already sitting outside, walking the dragon and thinking that if she raised this dragon with love for more than 10 years, and he suddenly starts listening to a stranger more than her, she would also be offended. And in general, even just showing that she is hurt is already a rather restrained reaction. But on his lordship's face, there is only one thing written: complete mistrust and nothing else. Lydia heard that those who are chosen by dragons begin to feel deeper feelings for them than ordinary people. They say that a special connection arises between the dragon and its chosen one, inaccessible to the understanding of ordinary people. If they really have such a connection, it means only one thing: that he chose her himself. And in the meantime, she tells the Duke that it was her mistake, and she didn't think that a dragon could behave like that. After that, she asked to return to training because she was just wasting her time and not getting any pleasure. To which he replied that he really didn't want to disturb her vacation. Well, since he couldn't calm the dragon down on his own, then he had no choice, and she could go to work whenever she wanted. During another walk, the girl notices that the dragon is a little dirty and it would be nice to bathe him. And if there was some lake nearby, it would be just wonderful. All that remains is to find out whether there is something like that here or not. Lydia didn't even have time to work for one day. She was already tired, as if she hadn't had time to sit down all day. Although this wasn't the most stressful day that could be. She is so angry about everything that is happening that even when the dragon snuggled up to her, she asked him not to touch her. He got offended, started to roll around on the floor, and make sounds that said that she was being too rude, and until she apologized, he wouldn't even pay attention to her. And when he started to spin from side to side, she asked him to stop, because if he wanted affection, he could turn to his owner. And after that, she wondered what friction it would be to remain strict with a dragon who follows him because he simply loves. She felt ashamed that she had taken out her anger on him, and since dragons sense everything, she felt doubly ashamed. She was miraculously lucky that he didn't run away or get as angry with her as she was with him. Then there would have been problems. In the end, the dragon didn't touch her. He just started lying on the ground and waiting for her to become calm again. After some time, the Duke came to them as usual. He calmly comes closer, but has no idea how the dragon will react to him. This huge animal pounced on him with such a face, as if there was an enemy in front of him, and then suddenly calmed down, as if he recognized the owner. Kazan never ceases to amaze him. To tell the truth, sometimes it is scary that sooner or later, the dragon will not react so quickly and accidentally harm him, for example, in the dark. Meanwhile, Lydia asks if she remembers correctly that the master said that he was going to correct the dragon's behavior, hinting that nothing has changed. She wonders what he will answer to this, although she herself understands that it is impossible to re-educate a dragon in just one day. It takes a lot of time and effort, even for the owner, not to mention a stranger doing it. In the end, they never discussed it. The girl asked permission to go away to take care of the training of the interns. He allowed her to leave because he really missed the dragon and wanted to be alone with him. And this was actually beneficial to her. These two hug. But inside, the guy feels that Kazen is much happier with the girl than with him. For now, he tries not to pay attention to it, but gradually the resentment grows. Here's the head trainer who has already come to check everyone else. Today, no one was expecting her here, but surprisingly, there are smiles. Lithia asks if she has disturbed them, and one of them answers that no. He just sent the dragons for a walk in the field, so if necessary, they can talk about something. The girl says that even if it is a day earlier, she plans to start short training sessions from today. But before that, she would like to ask them to help check the dragon's condition. They approached one dragon, and the colleague began to tell that this particular dragon was a representative of a rare species called the panther stalker. He heard that his light had specially obtained this dragon for the secretary. The girl responded that it seemed like the Duke really valued Lord Pascal since he gave him such a rare beast. And after that, the guy said that it turned out that they had been friends since childhood. At some point, a sound came from the enclosure that immediately sent goosebumps down one of them's spines. The dragon began to gradually emerge from the darkness, and Lithia began to think about what could be bothering him. She tried to befriend him, then asked if he could come over to her, and he reacted as if it would be better if she didn't say that and didn't pay any attention to him at all. Everyone else was very scared for her. Even those who were on the street and heard this sound ran up. They asked if everything was okay, but as it turned out, they were more scared for her than she was. The girl replied that everything was fine, and with such an expression on her face as if a cute little creature had growled at her, and not a dangerous dragon. After that, she asked who is responsible for taking care of a dragon of this kind. This guy responded and asked how he could help. The girl asked if he had noticed anything unusual about him, even the slightest deviation. Any information would be very useful. He started to tell that Lewis had always been very sensitive, more receptive than other dragons. He would say that a dragon reacts to everything much more sharply, so nothing unusual had just happened in principle. Lithia doubts that even the most evil dragon can behave like this without a reason, but the guy still helped and she is grateful to him for it. The girl also learned that this dragon had already changed its owner once. This happened when there was a struggle for the succession of the title in the ducal house. The guy doesn't know all the details. Probably that's why he managed to stay alive. No matter how it sounds, he only knows that the then owner and coach Louis died. Now it makes sense why he's so sensitive. Dragons are smart, so when a stranger suddenly appears and claims to be the new owner, he could intuitively understand that his previous owner would never return. Lithia asks who is the owner of Lewis now, to which one of them replied that his owner is a rare alchemist girl. Literally half an hour later, the trainer comes to the Duke and starts asking about Milena, whom she just found out about. And then the guy starts asking if she is ready for him to answer her a little frankly now. She said that she would be glad to receive any information, if of course he doesn't mind sharing it with her. And if he does, then she will understand everything. The Duke began to tell that, frankly speaking, all the dragons of the ducal house have problems. It's just that Louis has the most urgent case. After that, he asked her if there was a high probability that the dragon could cause an incident, and she told him that there was a probability, and a very high one at that. She also said that he only had trainees around him. She suspected that he would be suitable before that. But even so, to last more than 10 years under the supervision of only trainees, it's amazing. Once they get their certificates, she's sure they will become excellent official trainers. For the Duke, this is unexpected to hear, especially considering that she had recently had conflicts with them. Lydia added that if she were told to raise dragons in such conditions, she would simply shake her head and refuse. The guy doesn't want to upset her, but reminded her that, nevertheless, in a year, those who fail will be fired, the girl thought. What if in 1 year they managed to certify all the interns and began to look at his reaction? He sat for a while looking at her with an uncomprehending face. So while there was time, she thought of something. She should have been persuading the Duke, not turning it into a contest of wills. Apparently, everything went too far. And then he says that if this is the coach's opinion, then he will not interfere. But this is much more pleasant to hear. He even added that she knows better than anyone else how it should be, so he trusts her completely. According to rumors, Lady Milena is now completely absorbed in research. It will not be easy to get her out of the lab. The Duke warned her in advance that if she tried to ignore the authority of a personal trainer, the girl could show her this. Since Lithium is dealing with both Kazan and Luis, she thought that it would take a long time to convince them, so she also raised the issue of certification. But she didn't expect that he would agree so easily, even too much. In any case, it's a huge relief. For now, we can focus on this problem, and everything else will be solved as it comes. The girl knocked on the door where the alchemist was supposed to be, but for some reason no one answered for a very long time. Then the door was opened by a girl whom she sees for the first time in her life. Only her appearance leaves much to be desired. It is clear from her that she either has a lot of problems or she does not get enough sleep. It is also possible that she has some health problems, so she does not have the strength to take care of herself. Lydia asked if she was at the right address or if she had come if she was looking for the alchemist Milena, to which the girl replied that everything was correct. It was she. The lady introduced herself as the personal trainer of the Duke's house and tried to make the best impression, and she also felt like she was being interrogated. Then she handed over the document and began to wait for what Milena would say about it. Then she allowed her to pass, and Lydia was so happy, as if she had managed to pass some important exam in a couple of seconds. Then she sincerely thanked for the hospitality and began to look around. Only here there is nothing at all that pleases the eye. Everything is scattered on the floor, as if there had been no cleaning here for at least a couple of years and maybe more. Milena asks what the girl is doing, to which Lydia replies that she heard that the girl is the owner of the dragon Louis. After that, Milena reacted as if this was a special topic for her. She narrowed her eyes, and from the outside, it didn't look very good, even a little gloomy and alarming. Then she asked what happened to the dragon, to which the girl replied that he had not made a mess and was not hurt. But the likelihood of it happening was very high, so she would like to offer a course of corrective training. Milena understood the essence of the matter and asked if the trainer shouldn't do this, and why she was asking her about it at all. Lydia explained that no normal trainer would start training without the owner's permission, and that training is much more effective if the owner is involved in the process, and it seems that Louis especially needs his owner's presence right now. Milena started to tell that the dragon has always behaved like this, as long as she can remember and understands why it became a problem only now. After which the girl asked how many times a week the owner visits her dragon, and even when she comes, how much time she spends with him. It feels like Milena doesn't really want to talk about it. She's clearly keeping something quiet, if only we knew what exactly is. And then Lydia decided to say that she thought that if the owner had difficulty communicating with the dragon, perhaps it would be better to think about handing it over to another person's. Milena says that if the girls just want the water that the dragon of the Mazalid breed produces, then they can agree on this. But Lydia interrupts her and says that this is not the issue at all. Sometimes you come across people who stubbornly insist that they are the dragon's masters and will never give up, even when their actions clearly fall under the definition of abuse. They call themselves the masters and fiercely defend this, even if it is clear that this is not the case at all. Lydia tries to explain that if a girl has a desire to change something, then there is no need for replacement. But if this is not so, then, frankly speaking, as a trainer, she believes that in this case it would be better to change the owner no matter how unpleasant it may sound. Milena suddenly began to tell that she always tried very hard and tried to get closer to the dragon, but he did not open his heart so easily. As soon as she approached him, he immediately began to growl. And then an incident occurred, after which she still does not understand what her fault was. That day, the dragon was somehow especially irritated. She felt a burning sensation and blood spurted out all around. They say that if it had been a little deeper earlier, she would no longer be alive. Lydia understood the situation, but she still doesn't understand why the girl refuses her offer. She really wants to know the reason why Milena rejects her advice. She also says that some trainers, having received injuries from dragons, leave the profession, suffering from it, especially since in her case the injury was serious. And then, Milena burst into tears. She wanted to tell him that Louis was her father's dragon. She wanted to be friends with him so much, but now every time she remembers the moment of injury, everything comes back before her eyes and she doesn't know what to do now. To at least look at him normally. She doesn't want to send him somewhere else to get rid of him, but at the same time, when she meets him, she literally shakes. After some time, the trainer returned to the Duke to tell him how everything went. She says that, as she mentioned earlier, all dragons have some kind of problems, but with Louis, the situation is the most urgent. The guy asks if he understands correctly that they are needed by Louis, but in the future, perhaps, it will be possible to use them on other dragons. Lydia answered that everything is correct. And after that, she asked if he knew that Mrs. Milena had already received injuries from the dragon. He smiled slightly and asked how he could not know about it, since it was because of this that he personally fired the trainer, who was then working with Louis. Then he said that this was not the kind of dismissal she could think of. And from that moment, the girl began to listen to him attentively. Milena's family has been involved in alchemy for generations, and as everyone knows, alchemical families often have secret knowledge that is passed down from generation to generation. The guy asked her what she thought were the motives of the trainers who were specifically trying to get close to Louis. Grandpa asks if he really wants to say that the trainer, before she could finish her sentence. The guy answered that everything was correct. He was sent by someone, according to rumors. His goal was not only to steal family secrets, but also to eliminate alchemists from the ducal family in general. He explained everything to Milena, but it seems that what made her even more upset was that her own dragon attacked her. A dragon who lost someone who loved him? How could he easily accept someone new, having gone through all this? Louis most likely built an impenetrable wall in his heart, and it is very difficult to understand how strong it is. Lydia remembered that the girl told her that sometimes the dragon makes a completely different sound, not like his usual voice. She doesn't even know how to describe it. That's why she doesn't want to find a new owner for the dragon. She just wanted to tell him that he wasn't the only one who lost someone.